Hi, and welcome to Horror Recapped. Today, we will be talking about the 2001 psychological horror film titled Frailty, starring Bill Paxton, Matthew McConaughey, and Powers Booth. The movie focuses on a strange relationship between two young boys and their zealously religious father, who believes he has a godlike mission to kill demons that have disguised themselves as people. Beware. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. A man in a suit gets out of his car in front of an impressive-looking building that we learn is the Dallas, Texas FBI headquarters. At the desk, he speaks briefly with his coworker, who claims that the man has information about a known serial killer named God's Hands Killer, but he'll only give information to the lead investigator. Agent Wesley Doyle walks into his office and retrieves the photo of his mother that the man has taken off his desk. The man reveals himself as Fenton Mikes and claims that the killer is his brother, Adam, and that he just died. Fenton seems cool and distant, but Doyle is obviously skeptical. Fenton explains to the investigator that he was in his living room when he suddenly got a frenzied call from his brother, asking to bury him in the rose garden, like he promised. We then see his brother point to shoot himself in the head. Mikes admits to having stolen his brother's body to fulfill that promise. Doyle excuses himself and calls a small town's sheriff's office to ask the sheriff about it. The woman tells him the sheriff is off duty, but confirms Fenton's story when she says Fenton stole the body and an ambulance. Doyle tells him she did corroborate his story, but that they want the ambulance back. Despite his better judgment, Doyle decides to continue with him. Fenton won't answer Doyle's direct questions about how Fenton knows Adam was the serial killer. Instead, Fenton begins his long, involved tale about his family history. They were a small-town family of an auto mechanic father. We see the two boys as they survive life without their mom. 12-year-old Fenton is cooking meals while supervising his younger brother, Adam. One night, their father wakes them to say he's received a message from God. In the middle of his dreams, an angel appeared to him and said that their family had been chosen to be God's hands and cleanse demons from the world. He explains that he's been told to wait, and God will provide weapons and more information. While younger Adam is excited, Fenton is alarmed and asks if Dad had just dreamt it or imagined it. However, he claims, for sure, it was real, while saying he doesn't really know how it works. He tells the boys that they have to keep their new role secret, or else someone will die. The boys go back to sleep and wake in the morning as if nothing had happened. Fenton seems unsettled, but both Dad and Adam return to life as usual. The morning goes by normally, and Fenton is almost convinced he dreamed the whole thing up, only for this to come crashing down when Dad calls after them to remind them not to tell anyone while dropping them off. Fenton's hopes that this insane ideal will just disappear are quickly tossed aside by future events. Dad begins to be drawn to ordinary-looking items that display a beam of light from above. These items include an axe, some gloves, and an ordinary pipe. One night, Dad comes home and shows the boys excitedly that the angel came to him at work, and he now has a list of demons they're supposed to hunt down. Fenton still can't believe this happens, but Dad states that these aren't people, they're demons, and destroying them is actually God's will. Another night, Fenton and Adam sit up in bed while Fenton tries to convince Adam that the whole thing is made up, like Santa Claus. Adam protests, but Fenton is almost able to convince him. Outside, he sees his dad carrying a body over his shoulder. Dad brings out both boys to the shed out back, where he drops a woman. She has her mouth taped over, and her hands and feet are bound tightly. When removing his gloves, Dad realizes that he can touch the demons and reveal their true nature. Fearfully, he reaches towards her, and when his hand touches the woman, Dad's body seems electrified, shaking rapidly with a horrified expression now that he's sure she's a demon. Dad takes the axe and swings it high in the air just before bringing it down towards her. Dad then digs a grave in the rose garden behind the house. Fenton is crying that Dad killed someone in front of them, while Dad is simply sad that Fenton was the only one who couldn't see her demon nature. Adam then insists he could see it, but Fenton claims he's just lying. Agent Doyle tries to press for more information, but Fenton doesn't always share. When he asks why he never told, he explains that he knows he should have, but couldn't. When the agent asks for physical proof, Fenton asks if that's important, but then he offers to prove his story and show him the body at the rose garden where they'd be buried. The agent asks Fenton why he didn't say that in the first place, and Fenton asks if he would have believed him. He and Doyle make it downstairs, and Doyle has him put in cuffs before getting in the secured back seat of the car. Doyle responds when Fenton asks about the photo of his mother, and Doyle explains that she was killed by a murderer who was never caught. They begin driving to the site. As Fenton continues his tale in response to Doyle's questions, Dad acquires a van, and the three seek out their next target. They find an elderly man walking into a grocery store. Dad then explains that God will protect them from being seen even in broad daylight. Dad then forces Fenton, who has no desire to play a part, to help capture the man. He pretends to call out to a dog from tearfully under the man's car. The man quickly bends down to help coax the fake dog out, as Dad knocks the man out with his lead pipe. Fenton runs away crying, but is not brave enough to tell the police and turn him in for murder. Due to his lack of faith, Fenton is forced to dig a massive pit in the backyard. He tells him to pray and accept God's will for their family work. Angrily, Fenton searches for days, refusing to wear gloves to protect his hands. He won't pray and does not find any spiritual comfort. They board the pit's sides, add a roof, then slide a shed on top of it. Dad creates a small cellar, which Fenton immediately calls out for being a dungeon, as he knows its intended purpose. The next victim is brought, and Fenton refuses to use the axe and flees, running off to tell the sheriff what's happening. The sheriff doesn't believe him and tries to call his father. He begs the man not to, and eventually, the sheriff pretends to agree to check. He brings Fenton home and knocks on the door for his father, still clearly not believing the boy's story. The sheriff and Dad together scoff at the story, and Dad lies and says Fenton is making up stories because he had been punished. Despite Dad's warning glances, Fenton insists on coming to the shed out back, and he would prove it. Fenton brings the unsuspecting sheriff to the dungeon, where nothing is to be found. Finally, tired of all of this, the sheriff goes to leave, but Dad sneaks up behind him and kills him. Dad then vomits and cries that Fenton has made him a murderer because he wasn't supposed to tell anyone. Fenton then says he was already a murderer, to which he insists the other victims weren't people, but demons, and had to be destroyed. As a punishment, Dad locks Fenton in the cellar until he comes in contact with God. Adam brings him water and explains he won't be allowed food, but 1 glass of water a day. The first week comes to a close, and Fenton tells Dad there is no God. Dad locks him back up in a fit of rage, and the confinement continues. Fenton begins to hallucinate and eventually becomes unresponsive. This is when Dad and Adam bring him out, and Fenton smiles and tells his father he's seen God and now understands his purpose. The family goes to the home of their next victim. Fenton is calm and confident. Dad is glad Fenton has finally come around and eager to share in the mission with his son. They go to the home of a nasty man who is abusive towards his wife. He brings them out to the garage, where the man attacks them first, but they knock him out together and return him to their dungeon. Dad then performs the bare-handed touch ritual and nods to Fenton to destroy the demon using the axe. Fenton raises the axe in the air and swings it sideways into his dad. Dad falls backward across the room, blade in his chest. Shocked, he becomes emotional. Adam then runs to him, and Dad whispers in Adam's ear before he dies. Fenton turns then to the prisoner on the floor and rips the tape from his mouth. The man cries to warn Fenton just as Adam swings the axe and carries out his father's intended killing. While burying their father and the demon in the rose garden, Fenton makes Adam promise to plant him in the garden if he ever destroys him. Adam vows to do so and asks for the same in return. Agent Doyle then expresses confusion. They are in the rose garden since supposedly Adam killed himself. Fenton now reveals to Doyle that he's actually Adam. It's quickly revealed that he buried his brother, Fenton, that night. Suddenly, Doyle realizes he's in danger, alone in a garden of graves with a killer. He realizes that the number of graves doesn't match the number of killings, and we're revealed in flashbacks that Adam did, in fact, share in his father's visions of the crimes of those they abducted. They were actually demons all along. The two men struggle, and Doyle is quickly subdued to the ground. Wounded, Adam touches him, and horrible visions suddenly flash past. First, Agent Doyle kills his mother with blood splattering everywhere. Then Dad's first female victim in bed with a man with a slit throat. Next is the older man luring a little girl into his car with candy before pulling her lifeless body out. Finally, the last vision is the real Fenton's death at his brother Adam's hands. There's no struggle, as the two men have long since accepted the inevitable. Adam now swings the family axe, then digs a fresh grave in the present. The next day, in the FBI building, Agent Griffin Hull, who had to see Adam, can't remember his face. When they review the security tapes, they realize they've been inexplicably damaged, and his face is obscured by static whenever he's in view. They travel to the real Fenton Mike's house and find his body, along with a list of victims, with Wesley Doyle at the end. One agent goes into the small-town sheriff's office, the same one that Doyle had called previously. The secretary summons the sheriff, a neatly uniformed Adam Mikes. As the agent leaves, it's revealed he simply came to inform the man of his brother's death before word got out to the press. Adam shakes his hand firmly and holds on a bit longer, staring intently at the agent. Much to his confusion, Adam then nods and says, "You're a good man," before the agent leaves. The secretary walks out and stands behind Adam, saying, "Praise God." And that's going to wrap things up for today. Hopefully, you've enjoyed this recap as much as we did. Let us know what you thought of this horror film, or if you've seen it before. While you're at it, if you liked the video and want to look into other movies with us, then be sure to like on the video and subscribe to the channel with notifications on. That way, you won't miss a single video.